Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with Canadian-based author, speaker, and coach Brent Taylor. He spent 25 years in the oil and gas sector. From the downtown office to gas plant operator to negotiating $100 million contracts, he decided to venture out on his own, raising $20 million and started the largest manufacturing plant in Canada to build industrial accommodations. He literally went from employee to CEO. After losing his 26-year marriage, his $50 million company, and Christ coming into his life, he remarried 3 years later, and in one short year he lost everything again. In 2017, he published his book, Hiz Herz Greatest Need, and the single biggest reason why marriages break down. But better yet, how to build it up. After many years and many insights, he has great advice, and he's always out there giving it to the people and creating great stories. Enjoy this interview.
I'm just out by the lake in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. I call it the other LA. And
I love it.
There's no wind. It's just a man-made lake, but it's a pretty good size. And the fall colors of orange and green and gold and yellow and red and is just is breathtaking. So I'm out here. I was just chatting with a fellow here. He in his 80s and amputee, but we're talking about his wife who passed away years back and getting the lowdown. And then I saw another old couple walking across the pathway, and she was with canes, and they were like 80-some. And I'm thinking, we just need to appreciate the simple things in life.
Yeah. Amen to that. And you painted quite a visual there. That's the Norman Rockwell painting there with the lake and the colors and all of that. But yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that we all have a story, and there's all room for empathy for all of us, and that's really the simplicity of it.
Absolutely. We heal each other in our stories. We unite each other, and we heal each other.
Yep, we don't feel so alone on this planet, that's for sure.
Bingo.
Well, thank you for taking a minute out today, and I want to start off, speaking of the simple things, with your life. You're a busy guy. How did you survive COVID? How did that time period go over for you, and how did it change you now that we're coming out of it?
Well, that's a really good question. I was just telling this fellow here, there's one word that brings around change. It's called pain. And when the pain is greater than the fear of change, we change. I didn't like what was happening. I have my own thoughts on why it all happened, but there was a silver lining through it all. And for me personally, I moved down from Calgary to Lethbridge, and Christ came into my life 14 years ago. But I didn't realize that I didn't really have things where I needed them to be in my own heart, my own life. Even though I wrote a book and published it 5 years ago, I kind of thought I had this walk of life more or less figured out. But God didn't bring me to Lethbridge to change my dad. He brought me to Lethbridge so my dad could change me. And, I moved back in with my folks. I'm kissing 60 years old. I didn't want my kids to live down in Lethbridge. I wanted to be close to family. I didn't want to be locked down in my own place. Like you said, it's not good to be alone. And, so I moved here, and my parents had an extra room, and it's not easy living with your folks after all these years. And, there's certain patterns that can grate on your nerves and things that we need to look past. And I remember Jesus said the words, he said, what credit is it to you to love those that love you? Love thy enemy. And oftentimes the ones that we struggle with the most are the closest to us. So I think for me, and I embarked upon a path that was really unique. I learned my identity, which I didn't really know before, which gave me a huge, huge appreciation for the depth of God's love. And that it was His grace not only saved me, but completely transformed me. And I started to realize more and more, and how I was still not really walking in this amazing love that He's given me to give to others. So in this last 2 years, it's been a a huge eye opener. And as much as I didn't like what was going on in the world and media and the politics and all that kind of stuff, through it all, I dug deeper, and through the pain and through the trials and then also being a beacon of hope for others and helping people to maybe reach out, because I think we don't look up till we give up. We're not always awoken until we're broken. And I think a lot of people realize we've taken things for granted. You know, we think technology is good, but we have a lot of divorce in North America, U.S. and Canada. We have a lot of conflict and division, and the technology hasn't actually helped that either. And I think we're quite naive to think that we can continue to live in a divisive environment and expect unity. And I think we've appreciated the little things in life, marriages, family, being together. We don't like being locked down. We don't like distancing. We don't like to be divided, even by technology. I appreciate this phone call versus texting. 93% of communication is not words. We are wired. Every cell, every chemical, every electrical pulse in our body is actually wired to give love. When we actually have connection, face-to-face, voice-to-voice, there's something inside us that comes alive. So lots of reflection, lots of learning, lots of deep personal growth, and as well reaching out to others and writing my second book. And so, yeah, it's been a hard time the last 2 years with COVID, but there's been some huge positives. And I think people are waking up, hopefully, that we actually need to reach out and love one another. And we haven't been doing a good job of that. And hopefully our world will wake up in the church or out of the church.
That's well said, and I'm curious, as someone that's gone from being an employee to a CEO, you're obviously a highly driven person. Talk to me about your childhood. How did these seeds of being motivated and driven begin?
Well, thank you for the question. You know, my mom said it's probably at age 3 or 4 I used to wander off on my oversized tricycle and go exploring in the neighborhood. There was something different about me. She thought that I was very spiritual. And I think I remember laying on the grass on the little hill in our backyard and looking up and just kind of talking to God and thinking that I knew he was there. And then, you know, went to church a few times. My parents didn't go. My mom went, but my dad wasn't so much. And thank Jesus loves me, this I know. I'm grade 2 teacher a little bit. Said the Lord's Prayer. And then nothing really major until maybe my brother passed away at 12 with cancer. I was 15. But in between that time, I was a fat little porker. I was bullied and teased, and I didn't have good self-confidence. My brother passed away at 12, and I was 15. You know, impurities, addictions kind of came into my life at a very young teenage years. You know, when your father has penthouse and playboys around the house, that affects you. You grew up with wrong patterns. And then that leaked into my marriage. I was married at a young age at 19. Worked in the oil patch, started in the mail room, and then worked into purchasing and warehousing, and then into operations, plant operations. Lots of schooling, 15 years of night school and business and operations. Always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but never really felt great about who I was. 3 kids, coached hockey. Kids were in swim club for about 15 years and hockey in about 10 to 15 years. And you know, pretty normal family, but my addictions, not that they were super bad, but they definitely hurt my marriage. And I didn't realize how selfish I was. And I, you know, felt rejected most of my marriage, and I guess I didn't realize how needy I was. Bit of a sensitive guy, and wanted to be an entrepreneur. So the oil patch was going up and up, and I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I thought I was going to be somebody because I didn't think I was somebody. So I did a business plan. Took about a year and a half, did a lot of research. My job in the oil patch in the last 10, 15 years was doing high-profile contracts, doing a lot of negotiating for drilling, all the oil production. And so lots of business owners and entrepreneurs and CEOs that I would meet with and go to bid for. stick handling within the oil companies and stick handling outside the companies to negotiate these deals, I really had a flavor for business and big business. I thought, well, most of these guys, they're not that smart. I could do this. So I raised the $20 million over a period of about a year and started the largest manufacturing plant in Canada for making industrial accommodations. And it's brand new, state of the art, and about 140,000 square feet. Got up to about 130 employees. It'll hold 400. Got up to $22 million in a couple of years in revenue. And I was living with somebody in Lethbridge, and my wife and kids were in Calgary. And I was wanting to get out. And I wanted to have this amazing relationship that I felt I didn't have. And I got a call from the venture capitalists, and I got told that I was done. I didn't have an employment contract, a shareholders agreement, or share program for the employees, but I loved on the employees. I gave them hugs, shook hands, because I didn't want them to feel like a number like everybody, like every other company I worked for. I wanted them to know that they were loved and cared for. I was on top of this world. I had somebody, I had the company, and then I got a call. I went from zero to hero to zero, and I lost everything. And about 8 months later, it was really gnawing at me to leave this relationship. Every day I would just get this little voice saying, I can't be in this anymore. And my friends have been praying for me for about 9 years. And one day I booked an appointment with our pastor. I wasn't a churchgoer. I wasn't a Bible thumper. And booked 11 o'clock appointment with our pastor. And I had a 10 o'clock hair appointment. Didn't be so good with time. So I phoned and got in early to my hair so I could get out on time. So I got out at 10. And a phone call came from the church. It said, can you come at 2? So now I had 4 hours with nothing to do. My great-grandmother had given me a little burgundy Bible to give to my parents, and I didn't know why I had it in my possession. I sat down at this dining room table, nobody in the house, opened to the book of John, and I started reading every word that Jesus said. And I couldn't believe what I was reading. I just read out loud. Everything he said, I just wanted to reread and read more. And he said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. I'm in he, and he is in me, and you are in me. I closed the Bible from the back to the front after reading John, and I said, this is the book of love. God is love. That's what I was looking for. And I didn't think I had it. But he showed me how much he loved me. And all of a sudden, inside of me, I started floating. This breath came inside me. And I was floating in this golden light. I went from absolute wasteland to absolute peace. And I got in my truck and I drove to the church for my 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock appointment. And if I'd see people, I just have these little slits because all I could see was this golden light in my eyes inside my head. And I'd see people as I was driving. I'd say, just let them know you. Just love them. Let them know you. So I walked into the church, the pastor's office, and I said, I don't need to see you. He said, okay. He said, I'll tell you my life story in 15 minutes, and I did. And he said, well, that'd be the book I want you to read. I want you to read 2 more times. So I did over this next week, but the next day I was up in Fort McMurray, northern Alberta, trying to regain some financial grip. I had a RTM house, 1,500 square foot house I designed and was shipping up to ICF basement. The builder was going to do ready-to-move houses instead of a stick-built. So I designed it and I was waiting on the front yard of this lot. And this little voice pops into my head, and I only got one thing to do. I texted my wife, said, I'm coming to see you. I knew that I had to ask her to get back together. So the next day, the third day, I drove to Calgary and knocked on the door. And I went inside and I said, I'm here to let you know I read the book of John. I accepted Christ in my life, and I'm here to ask you to get back together. She tilted her head and said, I don't think so. I went back a week later and I asked for forgiveness for my adultery. She didn't say anything. And I went back a month later and I asked her, are you sure? And she said, yes. Now, knowing what I know today through prayer and patience and pursuit, could be different. She remarried and I remarried. I married a gal that had been beaten every day by her stepfather, and I was husband 5. In less than a year, she ran away 8 to 10 times, and I never saw her again. God still had to work on me. And then I started to write my book, Hiz Herz Greatest Need. God started to show me His and hers greatest need, and the single biggest reason why marriages break down, and how to build them up. So 4 years and lots of tears and lots of research and lots of time in the Word, and about 300 other books on men and women and marriage and addictions and psychology and the brain and parenting and healing. Finished my book. And 7 days after I got it printed, I got woken up from a nap to where Dr. Gary Chapman was speaking. On May 18th, he was speaking in Calgary on Thursday. And it was 7 days after I got my book printed. And the ironic part was I didn't organize it. But in August of 16, I sent Dr. Chapman an email in North Carolina asking if he would read my book. Hi, I'm from Canada. And I got declined. God wanted me to give him a finished book. I went into the church. I didn't know he was speaking there. The parking lot was empty, but I saw these black tablecloths with the Dr. Gary Chapman books on them. I asked somebody what's going on. He said he was speaking to a sold-out crowd of 1,800 people one night. So I'm sitting there in the cafeteria phoning my mom, empty church, saying, Mom, will you pray with me? Then I get to meet him. I hang up the phone. 10 minutes later, he walks right by me in the cafeteria. I shake his hand. I give him my book. And the next thing I know, I have an endorsement. My pastor said, how did you get that? And I said, I didn't. God did. And from there, I've been coaching couples and helping couples. I have a program. I got a 17-minute video that will take all the key nuggets not taught in the church or out of the church, and will turn marriages around. Take couples from wanting out to wanting each other. I've got some other books. I got the 7 Opposites book, The Biggest Misunderstanding About Sex and Unity. I've got workbooks. I'm doing a do-it-yourself, plus I have my coaching program that I use. My hope is 10 million marriages and 100 million souls, so that we can know the love that God has given us. And when husbands realize that they are the leader of love, not because they're first, because they put themselves last, as Christ loved us. They're the initiator of loving unity. There's not a woman in the world that doesn't want to be fought for and invited into unity. And there's not a man in the world that doesn't want to be his wife's hero. The number one creation God made has been put in last place, even in the church. We need to take it and put it in first place. And men need to know that God gave man and woman, not just as his helpmate, but moreover, the Hebrew word is ezer kenegdo, to love her. A man's purpose is to love his wife. And there's nothing greater that a man likes to see than his wife shine. When God made man, he said it was good. When he made woman, he said, whoo, my. And I have a little poem. It says, woman was made from man and for man. Not from his feet or his head, to be beneath or above, but from his side, to walk alongside. Under his arm to be protected, near his heart to be loved. And where he is weak, she is strong. And where she is weak, he is strong. Husband and wife are completers, not competitors. They're the greatest team between two human beings. And when God is at the top and the center of their lives, they will know how to love one another, their family, their community, and their world.
That's wonderful. So I'm curious, for someone that provides strength to people, who's been a hero or a mentor for you in your life?
Well, I got to give the credit to Jesus, to God, because without him waking me up on September 17th, 2008, he turned me around. He showed me who he was, that he is love, and he showed me that he loved me, and I was going in the wrong direction. There's many people that I've tapped into. I give my parents credit. They both read my book and helped me kind of through it, and they're still married. They still have some of their patterns that maybe aren't so healthy, absolutely. But I got to give all the credit to Christ as the mentor. You know, I've had certain other people say some cool things. I've always enjoyed public speakers, Zig Ziglar and these kinds of things. But, I just, seeing people still married. We saw this old couple walking around the lake, and it's just, those are the kind of situations where I really admire. So I wouldn't say there's been any one mentor other than Christ himself.
So with the work that you've done, what's been the best fan letter, so to speak, or best response that you've gotten from a client?
Well, I've had, many different ones. One couple comes to mind in Strathmore, Alberta, and she says, after 31 years, these are Christians, miscommunications and fights and misunderstanding, there's real communication and healing, and the walls come down and the hugs and the hearts come out. So just seeing the couples that I've coached have been huge. One of the first ladies that bought my book, she was on LinkedIn, and she phoned me. She said, "Hi, Brent, I got a new life. I got a divorce. I'm going to the kayak club, and everything's good." So we met for coffee for about 20 minutes, and I felt sad. And a month later, I met with her, and I drew my circles. I draw circles. My book is guy-friendly. It's diagram-friendly. It's easy to read. She said, "I'll buy your book, but I don't believe in God." She contacted me 3 months later, texted me at Thanksgiving, and said, "Hi, Brent, just hope you're having a good Thanksgiving, and I want to let you know I had time to read your book. I enjoyed it immensely, and I wished I would have read it with my ex 10 years ago." I mean, I've just had so many people over this last number of years. I just had one the other day. I met in Tim Hortons, and she's on her second marriage and addiction issues, and her husband kicked her out, and somehow I just met her, and she just finished the book, and she said, "Wow, I didn't realize all the things that I was doing wrong." I work with a men's addictions group here in Lethbridge, and they've had a lot of troubles in their lives, and our number one problem is we're addicted to ourselves. But when they read the book, so there's just so many people that I've talked with and worked with and shared with. I'm helping a gal in Sacramento. Her husband's walked out on the marriage, 26-year marriage. I've been talking to her every day for 4 months and helping her come through this and stand for her marriage. And she actually has peace. She's read the book of John 4 times. She's reading Genesis. She's read the other ones, and she's standing for her marriage. And she's not quitting when everybody else thinks she's fools. 70% of divorces are initiated by women right now, and there's 80 million people in North America that are either divorced or not married between 20 and 70. So, it's just been a whole variety of compliments, and that's why I have this passion to reach out to 10 million marriages and hopefully take those proceeds and put them towards helping the addictions and the homeless and the abused and the single moms, and putting them back to work, giving them purpose to take this in a big way. I've raised money before and built a company, so I'm hoping that 10 million marriages, at least 10 million marriages, can raise a few $100 million to start to, and more, to put people back to work, to put our arms around people and let them know what's really important in life, and to help marriages, to help addictions, to help men and women, and to reach out. So, we'll just pray that God's hand is in this, and because the 3 greatest gifts we begin are love, choice, and believing. And if we choose to believe that His love created us and His love sustains us, and when we start giving, we start living.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your clients, those that get your book. They all have this idea of who they think you are, but you're the one that lives your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I would say, Joe, I'm God's son who loves Him very much. He has given me a passion, somebody who's very sensitive, very passionate and loving, and really cares about relationships, has given me the ability to dig deep for profound insight. Simple, but profound insight. I like what Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it. I would say many don't truly understand the simplicity that God has made us with. He created us to love. That's who He is. They chose not to do that in the garden, and He chose to keep doing it and give us back our choice to believe, to love again. And that's really the message of who He is in His Word. So He's given me some deep insight and a passion to share. My grade 4 teacher said if I spent less time talking, I'd get more work done. Well, I'm a sharer of insight, and I love to help people feel good about who they are. I would say that's probably what drives me. Is I went to Choices. Thelma Box has a wonderful program. Texas, Calgary, Vancouver for 40 years. She worked with Dr. Phil and come out of there with a contract. It was a wonderful program. And I said, I'm an honest and loving man, and I haven't always been honest, who helps others feel loved and good about who they are. And I have a special heart for husbands and wives. Through my pain comes my passion. So I would say God has made me passionate, very loving, very insightful, to dig for the insight with deep meaning, and to really reach out to people. That's what He made me to be.
So, Brent, if anybody wants to get your book, learn more about you, anything related to what you do with your company, where's the best place on the web for them to go?
Well, until my new website gets rebuilt, or the one that I have, but there's a couple, 3 different places you can go. For the video, I would encourage you to go to marriagereignited.com. For a freebie of 7 opposites, and the greatest misunderstanding about the sex and unity and 7 opposites is marriagereignited.com/opposites. And for my coaching, if you go to intro.hizandherz.ca, and that's HIZANDHERZ.ca, intro.hizandherz.ca. I would welcome a phone call for sure at any time, at 2:30 in the morning maybe, but so it's 1 and then the area code 403-816-5049. Would love to hear a call, or you can shoot me a text. And then my original website is hizandherz.ca. We're going to be turning that into hizandherzmarriage.com, but it's hizandherz.ca. The website that I don't have out yet is I Am Whose I Am. It's a book on similar conversation what I shared with you, but it's going to tie a little bit more into identity. And that book is coming out probably within the next 6 months or a year. And my email is brent@hizandherz.ca. So that's BRENT@HIZANDHERZ.ca. So would love to hear from folks all over North America or the globe. And if there's anything I can do or send you, would love to hear from you. And just never give up. Love never fails.
Absolutely. Amen. Brent, thank you for taking some time out. I appreciate you opening up your story, and good luck with everything you do down the line. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking time, Joe, and your questions, and hopefully I didn't talk too much. And I look forward to chatting with you again, and please reach out, and God bless everybody who listens to your show, and thank you for what you do.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, spirituality, and music around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.